Pull up the waves.
What's good, y'all? Track Kennedy with StudioSounds.com back with a brand new tutorial. I've been gone for a while and I just want to apologize for that. I've actually been dealing with some legal stuff around the beat I did for a YouTube tutorial that ended up being released by a major label. For you guys who keep up with me, you guys know this isn't the first time this has happened with a tutorial of mine, and the same thing happened previously with a Kurt Cobain's record a few years ago. There's a whole legal process you go through when something like that happens, and it all takes a while, but it's basically almost done, so I want to start dropping videos for you guys again. This particular beat is a beat I did for a new bank for Serum we dropped called Tokyo Heartbreak. That bank is influenced by chill melodic trap and the sounds of Lil Uzi Vert. If you listen to this beat, I think you can probably hear the slight influence of EXO Tour Life. I tried to still make mine unique, but that was kind of structuring the feel I was going for. I used only Tokyo Heartbreak and our Submarine and Glitch drum kits for this whole beat. You can find those at StudioSounds.com right now for anyone interested in picking those up. Thank you guys for the 5,000 subscribers and all the support. I'm excited to start dropping more videos for you guys again, so let's go ahead and jump into this beat. So for this particular beat, if you guys take a look at it, everything's pretty much revolves around these different samples, and this is all one sample, just different little small variations of it. So basically what I want to do is I want to go ahead and just start showing you guys what the sample sounds like, and then also showing you guys what actually went into creating the sample. So this is the sample by itself.
Pull up the waves.
And then right here at the end, you start to hear like a little small low pass filter, which is used for the intro and then for the second part of the hook, but we'll get into that a little bit later. So the first thing I want to start breaking down is just the sample for you guys. So the sample is basically just three different elements. These are all from the Tokyo Heartbreak bank for Serum. The first one is the undertone bells, and by itself this is what it sounds like. And I just like the melody of that, and also kind of the slight grittiness you get with those bells. I thought it was kind of like a cool little balance. From there I wanted to stack more on top of this just to kind of make it fuller. So the next thing I wanted to add was this little pluck that I found in Tokyo Heartbreak again, and I layered the exact same notes just an octave higher. So to me that sounded pretty cool, but I just felt like it needed something to kind of tie it together. So the next thing I added was this little plug called Spiced with Metals from Tokyo Heartbreak again, and these are the notes I played with it. The first basically the first little section right here is the only thing that kind of resembles a chord a bit, and basically what I was kind of thinking of doing was using this chord right here, but I just kind of rearranged it in a different manner just to make it a little bit more interesting, and I came up with this. So as you guys can see it, but when you add this together, it's what you have. So I thought that sounded pretty cool, but it was kind of a little bit busy for what I want to start off with. So what I did to it was I threw a gross beat on the master channel, went down to the momentary settings, and then just used the half speed that we're all kind of familiar with. I threw that on the master channel, and then I just went quick render as audio clip to end up with this. Minus the effects, you guys know what that is. That's just the sample I just played for you guys. So that's kind of how I created the sample. So let's go ahead and jump in the next section. I'll show you guys what I layered on top of this, but it's really simple. So the first thing I want to start off with is the intro, then break down the hook, and then we'll move through the verses real quick. So for the intro piece, it comes in really simple. As I told you guys, we have a low pass filter just to make sure the sample isn't as bright, and then I also chopped the sample up just to kind of get rid of that little second section. I didn't want this little second section, excuse me, to be super melodic throughout it, so I felt like it was kind of distracting. That's kind of initially how I had it, and then when I chopped it down to this, it just kind of was a lot simpler. And all this is basically just chopping this first section in half, and then just repeating. So So that's basically all that is right there. But anyway, so once we have that, we have the low pass filter. The first thing that you hear come in to this track and layer with it is this 808. This is from our submarine drum kit, and here's what it sounds like with the track. Just kind of found a little grooving pattern that I liked. You guys probably all know how to do 808s. Really nothing kind of difficult or complex about this. The only kind of, I guess, weird thing or different thing that I do than a lot of people is just throw a quantize on my 808s as well. So just select the notes. Actually, you don't have to select the notes if you want to quantize the whole thing. You just hit Alt and Q, and they'll pop up with the quantizer. For my 808s, I usually like them all the same level, so I won't mess with the velocity. But I'll just usually use the MPC2 setting. That just gives me a nice little groove to them, and it just pushes them ever so slightly kind of off the lines to make sure that the project isn't like super stiff and robotic, so that kind of helps. So anyway, that's the 808. From there, we basically start to combine and kind of reuse some of the same melodies that I used earlier. So pattern 11 is literally the same thing from pattern 1. This little section right here is basically on pattern 11 solo now. I just personally kind of like the contrast of going from this to kind of highlighting that melody more with these, and just kind of going back and forth from that half speed to the actual full melody. So a lot of the melodies you guys will see me use or reuse are going to be for the exact same elements that we already put into the sample, but just when we playing with this, they're obviously going to sound slightly different and be a little bit more bright just because they don't have that half speed on them. But anyway, here's what it sounds like when we combine these two.
Track, pull up the waves.
And then from there, I reused the same exact melody for the undertone bells, used the exact same preset again, and just added that melody back in here as well. So that was like a cool little foundation, but I just wanted a nice little transition to move it from the actual intro piece into the hook. So what I did was I used this little riser from Tokyo Heartbreak again, and this is the Digital Riser 3 for anybody who has the bank. And when you combine it with this, it just helps to kind of build a little bit of drama, a little bit of suspense for the drop. So here's what it sounds like. I thought that sounded pretty good, but I wanted a second kind of effect in there, or just something in there, just kind of pick up the pace a little bit. So all I did was I added a little cymbal in here, a little crash, and I just reversed it, time stretched it to 1 bar generic so it doesn't change pitch. Then I went ahead and I threw a delay on there so it kind of has a little bit of a tail end to it. And then I used gross beat to use this little sped up gate, so that little tail end of the delay just kind of runs through this, just to give it kind of like a cool little groove. In my opinion, I just thought it sounded pretty cool. And then that EQ is really simple. It just gets rid of any low end that might be in there for the mix, but when you combine the two transition effects, is what you end up with. So that's basically the whole intro right there. So let's jump in the next section and we can start breaking down the actual drop in the hook. So when the track actually drops into the hook, the biggest thing you start to notice is the drums. So I'm going to go ahead and just run through the percussion and the drums on this track real quick, which is all right here. So the very first thing I did was add these two little percussion elements from our glitch drum kit. I was just kind of looking for weird sounds that were kind of just different in that TM88 lane, and that kit has just a lot of weird kind of spacey out there type sounds, and I thought these two layered well in here. So here's what they sound like with the track. Then from there, I wanted to add in a hi-hat. So this hi-hat is really simple. You guys see the top end, really nothing confusing there. and then just has kind of like a little third and sixth note kind of rolls up and rolls down. Just kind of emulate that TM88 effect, but with the track it just starts to kind of give it the bounce. So here's what it sounds like. And then from there I have a second hi-hat in here as well, and this hi-hat is just to kind of complement and accent that first one. I like to use a second hat just to add in like a variation into the track. So here's what it sounds like. And all these drums are from the Submarine drum kit. I don't know if I mentioned that, but as you guys can see, really simple, but helps to add a nice little variation in there. Then we have the actual snare in here. This is from the Submarine drum kit as well. And the kick pattern is really basic, just because I felt like there was a lot really going on melodically, and the 808 really kind of sticks out in this track. I feel like it's, well, actually I wouldn't even say it sticks out, but it's just kind of like a big part of it. I didn't want the kick to be super busy on top of that, so really simple kick, as you guys can tell. And then from there, let's see what else is in there. Another little snare. This is more kind of like a rim shot type snare, just kind of accent it. And then kind of finish it off, this little open hat right here. So that's the A section of the hook, and I thought that sounded pretty good, but I wanted to kind of drop into like a second section that was slightly more melodic, so that's what this is. So let's jump in the next section. I'll show you guys what actually went to the B section of this hook. So for this B section of the hook, it was more about taking away than it was about adding a ton of stuff to it. So as you can see, the very first thing that kind of pops back into the picture is having this low pass filter on it again, just to make it slightly more ambient. Then I got rid of the hats just to kind of reduce the energy for this little section, and just kind of pull it back a little bit. Got rid of the snares just to make it slightly more airy and open, and obvious it's a little drop. And then just kind of as a finishing touch for section B, I added this melody back in just to make it a little bit more melodic with the undertone bells. The only difference is it only plays straight through the whole melody for this little second section, but for this first part it just kind of chopped up to play the first part twice. So here's what it sounds like. So as you guys can see, the track switches to a different sample for the actual verse compared to the hook. So the main difference between these two samples is just effects. This particular sample down here just has a gross beat with a gate on it, and also a pancake just to make it kind of slightly more wide and run through the track a little bit better. So the gross beat just has a 1 beat gate on it, just chop it up a little bit, and like I said, the pancake just make it a little bit more stereo and a little bit more open. So when it chops, excuse me, when it drops from the hook to the verses, what you have. So that sounded pretty good to me for the verse. I didn't want to do a ton of little change ups and whatnot, just because I had like a slight little change up over here that was basically like a little pre-hook section. So for this section, the main thing that kind of changes at first is this sample. I went ahead and I re-exported pattern 1 just without the undertone bells. So I literally just exported this section out, and then I threw a low pass filter on this, and I also got rid of the little gate section in here, so just a little slightly more ambient section that pops in. So here's what it sounds like without the actual melody on top of it. So still kept that auto panner on it just so it's slightly similar, but it's not as chopped up as the first section is. And then on top of that, I went ahead and I added a little top end melody, and I also dropped a bunch of stuff out again just to kind of make it more open and like a little drop section. So here's a little melody for it. This is actually the same sound that we used earlier, this little pluck. The only difference is I made sure I used the full velocity on this just because it makes it a slightly sharper sound. So when you kind of turn the velocity all the way up, you don't get that super ambient pluck that we initially had. You get more something like this. So when you combine that with the track, this is what you end up with. And then from there, the beat just runs through the hook again versus the typical kind of layout, so nothing really new to show you guys. So that pretty much does it for this tutorial. Like I said, if you guys want to pick up any of these kits, you can do so right now at studiosounds.com. Thank you for watching. Make sure you hit that subscribe button if you have not. Let me know in the comments what you'd like to see next. Until next time, I'm Track Kennedy with studiosounds.com.